Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Ask Them Anything webinar, and today I am Tony Delaney, and I'm from the Office of Student Support, and I'm the Clinical Case Manager. So today we're going to just talk about some things that the office offers students here at UB. And to my side, I have Pavan Perswani, and I'll ask him to introduce himself.
Sure. So my name is Pavan Perswane. I'm the Associate Director for Student Support in the Office of Student Support, where I work very closely with Tony, as well as manage some other aspects. And so we wanted to start off just by talking a little bit about what our office does and what's encompassed in the Office of Student Support. And then we're going to focus a bit after that on different ways that we're trying to support students right now through the pandemic and even just beyond that, the work that we're always doing. And so the Office of Student Support encompasses a bunch of different offices. So our Dean of Students is a part of the office, as well as student conduct, which I help oversee. And so kind of working towards addressing anything going on there. We also have UB Connects, which is a mentorship program for students that gets them connected with different staff and faculty members, which is a great opportunity, particularly as we're kind of in this remote environment. If you're struggling to get connected or feel connected to the campus, it's a wonderful program to get connected with. And we also have our Office of Disability and Access Services, who work with students that have diagnosed disabilities or conditions to get them the accommodations that they need to help them be successful. And so Karen Schultz and Maria McClay work in that office and are fantastic, and work very closely with a number of students. And so that, in addition to the Compass Case Management Program and the Student Assistance Program, is all that's kind of encompassed. And so we're going to talk a bit more about Compass and the Student Assistance Program later. And so the first thing we wanted to talk about are just some of the different grants that are currently available to UB students if they're looking for support. And so we're going to focus our attention at first on two very specific funds. One is the CARES Fund. And so that is the acronym that is used for a series of funds that were made available to higher ed institutions in early 2000. And so the full name is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act. And so you've probably heard about it. Over the course of about a calendar year, UB students have been awarded approximately, I think, $1.21 million. These are all dollars that came from the federal government and are specifically earmarked as needing to provide direct services to or direct aid to students through that grant process. And so the way that that has worked within the CARES funds is the students have to have completed their FAFSA for the year prior. They have to be enrolled at UB at least half time. It's currently only available to US citizens or meeting the definition of eligible non-citizen based on federal financial aid requirements. And the use of the funds has to be related to the disruption of campus operations due to the coronavirus. So, in the event that you use the campus pantry in the past and don't currently have access, that would be an example. In the event that you would use the library commonly and are now having to pay for Wi Fi at your home, that would be another example. So, there has to be a direct tie. I want to specify that there is now a secondary act that has been passed. It's the Higher Education Relief Act, I believe, and it has a more formal name. But that is kind of round two that is going to be coming to the institution around April. And so that will continue the aid that can support students directly through the CARES funds. And there's going to be two significant changes in that act. One is that previously, if you were in an online only program, so all of your classes were going to take place online even before the transition to remote instruction for campuses, you would not be eligible. You are now eligible under this new act. The second piece of it is that there does not have to be as direct of a tie between the transition from from in-person to remote operations. So they're lightening up some of those restrictions to make that money more accessible to folks. The most important thing that you should know about the CARES Act funds is if you have questions, you should check out, there are two places I would send you. One is the financial aid website at UB, and two, if you search COVID grants or you go to the plan for the UB response to COVID, you can also find it there. It'll have some information and tell you a lot more about the specifics of the CARES grants. The other thing, and I'll kind of share this at the end, is how the CARES funds and our student emergency assistance funds interact, because they do in some ways. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tony.
So kind of just talking about that, let's talk about the Student Emergency Assistance Fund. So this is an additional fund that is available to all UB students. And this fund is not funded by federal dollars. So this is based off of the kindness of some donors and the hard work from the UB Foundation. Now, to be eligible for this fund, you have to be enrolled in at least one course. And the major difference between this fund and the CARES funds are that these funds are available for international and DACA recipients. So if you are a student who does not qualify for financial aid through FAFSA or international and a DACA, in addition to a student who is, you are eligible for the Student Emergency Assistance Fund. And what this fund is really looking to support is those emergency expenses that come up. That happen to the best of us despite some of our planning. So, emergency medical costs, or let's say, at a time when you were traveling to school and your vehicle, I don't know, the alternator died on it and now you can't make it to classes. Or, you had an emergency that came through loss of employment, and now you're struggling to maintain your bills. All of those things that are emergencies that were unexpected and that are crucial for your success can be covered. Another piece I would always recommend is, while it is not required at this time, I always encourage students to attach documentation when they apply. It definitely helps with the application and helps us better understand the level of need that is being requested. The Student Emergency Assistance Fund and the CARES Fund can only be accessed once a semester. So that's another really key thing to keep in mind. And the other piece of it that I would always encourage students to do is to understand that these funds are not instant. So if you were to apply and you were to be awarded, they're not going to come in the next day. There is a process that goes through when those funds are dispersed. And so there's on average about 5 to 10 business days, depending on if you would be receiving a paper check or if you're receiving a direct deposit, if you have that registered and set up through the bursar's office. If you had questions about that process or had anything, you can always come back to our office and ask us questions about the Student Emergency Assistance Fund.
Well, and we're also happy to help you submit your CARES Fund application as well. Because we have worked with them so much, we have a pretty good working knowledge of what information would be helpful to be shared, et cetera, and we're always here. The other thing that I wanted to touch upon is, so we try to maximize the number of students who can receive awards. And so we work very closely with financial aid in reviewing what students have been awarded through CARES, and trying to make sure that we can award as many students as possible. The total amount for awards typically from CARES is usually larger than we can accommodate from the Student Emergency Assistance Fund. Like we talked about, the donations to that fund come directly from donors, and doesn't necessarily have the significant amount of money that the federal government has provided for the CARES fund. So we try to really focus on the CARES funds first, and that's why we always emphasize to students who are eligible for both to apply to both. And we will sometimes have to wait on making a decision for our award for the Student Emergency Assistance Fund until we hear about the CARES award, to make sure that we're providing support to as many people as possible. And so there is a very big overlap, and we've been able to partner with financial aid really well. And Tony mentioned this as well, but the foundation as well as advancement for the university have been tremendous partners in helping find folks to donate to those funds. And we have been incredibly lucky to basically make just under 300 awards since the launch of the Student Emergency Assistance Fund, and provide roughly around $180,000 worth of direct aid to students. And we continue to keep kind of pushing forward, because one of the things we want to emphasize for the Student Emergency Assistance Fund is the plan has always been for that to exist far beyond COVID, and the plan was in the work for that to begin before COVID happened. And then that just kind of drove everything to move even quicker when we realized that we had students who needed support. So now we're going to transition to some, go ahead, Tony.
Oh, sorry. And one other thing that I wanted to share is, I know at this time, not everyone has access to platforms that play nice with some of the online web applications. Also, there might be some students that have some accessibility issues depending on the software they're using. If that is a case, reach out to our office. We're more than happy to assist you if you're having any issues when trying to apply for those funds, because we can definitely support you and walk you through that, or make adjustments as necessary.
So that's actually a very good transition, because we're going to start talking about other ways that either our office can assist you or the university can assist you right now. And so, Tony, you hit on technology. I think one of the things that is kind of an untapped treasure right now is all of the work that OTS is doing to support students with technology needs. And so we've seen a lot of requests for folks who are looking to purchase new computers, and we're still trying to support those. But in the event that you have a technology need specifically around a laptop or a webcam for your courses, there is a process through which you can request them through OTS. And so we want to make sure that we emphasize that. And there's some other things that they may be able to assist you with, or we might be able to assist you with, in terms of getting connected to the internet, whether it be through the Student Emergency Assistance Fund or some other options. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Tony. If you could talk a little bit about what Compass Case Management is doing, or just kind of other resources that we've been providing a lot throughout the pandemic to students who may be in need.
Right. So I guess before I go into the Compass Case Management program, I would want to talk about the Student Assistance Program. So the Student Assistance Program is available all year round, 24/7 to all UB students. Imagine an employee assistance program, but designed for students. And essentially, they provide a whole host of different services: in the moment support, short-term counseling up to five free sessions, free financial planning over the phone, a free 30-minute legal consultation per incident with a lawyer. And then for those who are taking care of children or elders in their family, they even help out with finding referrals for services for them. And all this information can be found on our office's website. And you can also just go to www.ubalt.edu/student assistance, all one word, and it'll take you straight to the website. And then also in the MyUB portal, if you look in your My Tools section on the right-hand side of your homepage, and you scroll to the bottom of all those tools, you'll find that button there for the Student Assistance Program. And they've been working really hard to also just connect students with COVID resources. Now, there are times when there's things that students need help with that may not be covered by the SAP. And that is where the Compass Case Management Program comes in. And so in that program, I connect with students, and I basically do a kind of a needs assessment to see what are those needs that you have. Is it food security? Is it housing? Is it finding insurance? Is it finding providers in the community? Is it trying to find low income basically supports? Is it trying to find scholarships, things that are preventing you from being able to focus on your studies and be the best student that you can be? My job is to find solutions for them. And so really, the Compass Case Management Program is just there for that, to add that additional level of support. I also can help refer you to other offices here at UB that you may or may not be aware of, and that could be beneficial to you depending on what your needs are at the time. Now, you can self-refer yourself to Compass Case Management by going again back to that MyUB portal and to your tools, because next to the button that says Student Assistance Program, there's one that says Community Reporting Tool. You click on there, and it'll have a list of different forms that you can use and that are all eligible that you can use. And one of them on there should say Compass Case Management. You click on that form, you fill out the information, and then you should hear back from us within about a day or two. And the other part of it too is and this is a big one, if you have classmates that you feel could benefit from anything that we have talked about in this video thus far, the grants, the student assistance program, or they have just general questions, you can make a referral for them, for your friends in your class. You can refer them to us through this form. If you have any concerns about that or you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. You can make that referral anonymously. So what I mean by that is you don't have to use your name if you didn't feel comfortable, but you still wanted to connect that person with our office. And this is not a joke. I literally have gotten Iron Man and Mickey Mouse come through in my first year working here at UB. So people do use that form, and you can do it anonymously. But we encourage everyone to leave some contact information, because sometimes we do like to follow up. But our office is also currently always taking a look at, especially for campus case management, trying to find ways of supporting students with specifically for COVID stuff. So looking for testing sites, looking for places to get vaccines if you're eligible for those, answering questions you may have that, or referring you to resources within your local community. The other key piece I think is really important to highlight, especially for our students that are online or may have gone home during the transition to the remote learning environment, is that our services are not limited to the city or county of Baltimore. They're not limited to Maryland. We have supported students in other states halfway across the country, and will continue to do so. It's the beauty of Google and the beauty of networking. We are able to find resources for students no matter where they live. So please don't feel like your geographical location currently is a limiting factor in how useful we can be for you. We would love to be able to work with you on that.
And I want to jump in on two things there as well. So Tony, you put it really well in terms of that we have networks of support around the country. And so that's one of the benefits of the student assistance program, is that they have a network of providers all across the country. And so in the event that you're in Oklahoma right now, they have a network of mental health professionals that they can call upon to help get you those 5 free sessions, and that's per topic. So you could potentially revisit it depending on it, and they'll work with you to get you connected to a provider that may be in your insurance or on a sliding scale. And that's also where Tony can help if you want to work through him directly in terms of getting you connected. The other piece that I want to revisit around kind of the pandemic and COVID is where the Compass Case Management program can be helpful is in the event that like you're feeling the effects of it and you need to, or you don't want to necessarily communicate with all of your faculty that like, oh, I've contracted COVID and I need to like take a break and focus on me. By filling out one of those forms, we can work with you and figure out the best way to notify folks and share what you want in terms of next steps in that. And so it's another great way for us to provide support to you. There's also, and this will kind of revisit into some of the additional resources in our office, there's a good working relationship between Tony and Compass Case Management Services and our Office of Disability and Access Services. And one of the interesting elements of COVID is that there are some folks who have very short-term symptoms that kind of appear and then disappear, and then there are other folks who have long-ranging medical conditions that seem to be branching off of that. And so there may be the ability to then transition you to make sure that you're getting the accommodations that you may need through the Office of Disability and Access Services. Tony, is there anything you would add to that?
No, I mean, I think that that's a really key. And if you wanted to look up more information about that, you can just go to www.ubalt.edu/DAS, and that will have all the information that you would need to look up if you were interested in that, and even if it wasn't COVID-19 related. The other aspect I would want to say is if you're trying to find anything that we're talking about with regards to the assistance program, Compass Case Management, some additional supports on the website, you can go to our office's main website, and to get there, you would just have to go to www.ubalt.edu/student support. And that's all one word on the backslash, no underscores or anything like that. And that'll take you straight to our website. And on the left-hand side are tabs for everything that we're discussing today, including a direct link to the Student Emergency Assistance Fund, which you'll find towards the bottom. And the one thing I also want to keep in mind is the other piece that our office does is we try to keep an eye on other supports that are coming to residents here in the state of Maryland and also more broadly through the federal government. Two programs that I do want to highlight to ensure that everyone is aware of is the Maryland Relief Act that was recently passed a few weeks ago. Through the comptroller's office, they have an information webpage on there that'll give you an opportunity to see if you're eligible to receive any support through that program. Some of those programs may provide direct payments to qualified individuals, as well as additional payments per child in their household. That's at the state level. And just about an hour before we began recording this video, the federal government, the House passed the American Recovery Program plan. And so that should be signed this Friday. Within that program, obviously, is some of the stimulus checks for those that are eligible for those funds. But there's also an added child benefit that will start once that is signed into law and begins rolling out. I encourage everyone to educate themselves on those programs because they may have some significant benefits for you and your family as you're working through difficult economic times. The last thing I also want to highlight is I know a lot of our students have lost employment or are looking for more gainful employment. Please, please, please remember that the Career and Internship Center is definitely a wonderful resource. They are fully functioning online. They offer assistance with resume writing, and they even have an ability to help you practice your interviews through a mock interview through UBworks. So please check out that resource. They are also a resource that vets job postings. So you're less likely to run across a fraudulent posting or a scammer who's just simply attempting to get your information, which you may find a higher incidence of that on like Indeed.com or other type of job search websites. But our office works really closely to ensure that that doesn't happen.
So on that note, and I would definitely advocate for everything Tony just said about UB Works and the Career and Internship Center, but just the rule of thumb that everyone who watches this should hear is that typically a reputable position is never going to ask you to provide funds up front for an employment opportunity. And in the event anyone is, you should definitely check in with the Better Business Bureau before doing so, or just kind of research the employment opportunity a bit more. And I would definitely, again, point you to the Career and Internship Center to kind of get through the different options. And I want to ask you a follow-up question and then kind of turn to advice from what we've experienced this year, Tony.
Mhm.
But obviously, one of the other things that we've worked a lot with is folks who are concerned about eviction notices, et cetera. And there's been a lot of different work that's happened at a federal, state, and local level in terms of providing support and trying to mitigate the fact that so many folks are feeling that kind of economic downturn, for lack of a better way of putting it. So can you talk about, for folks who maybe are experiencing that, some of the things that they should be on the lookout? Obviously, we've talked about compass case management, and we're here to help navigate some of that with them, but other things that may be useful for them to keep an eye on.
Yeah, no, most definitely. The biggest thing I would say is take a look at your local jurisdiction's housing or social services department, because you're going to find the local information on how they're allocating emergency rental assistance funds. So there's a broader state assistance plan, but they also have some little bits of block grants that are breaking out into the local jurisdictions. That is definitely a good resource to look at because many of them will support you if you can apply for them. And then sometimes, depending on the level of need, you can reapply for additional funds if the initial awarding doesn't help you for the long term or only covers part of what is owed. The other piece I always encourage people to do is to take a look at any of the eviction prevention programs that are available in addition to the emergency COVID rental assistance. A lot of the times there are programs that will help support folks get back on their feet and to catch up on their rent, or at least to work with their landlords. And then for those who are experiencing significant challenges or have concerns about how their landlords may be handling their situation during the pandemic, or whether or not they have a moratorium, or if they're feeling pressured in any of those ways, I would encourage you to always check out the Office for Landlord and Tenant Relations. Now that goes by different names depending on the jurisdiction, so it depends on your county or your city. But generally, they have a department that is specifically targeting that. And then always, if you are a resident of Maryland and legal representation might be needed for your situation, or you just want to advise, again, you have the SAP with the free 30-minute legal consultation with a lawyer. But you also have Maryland Legal Aid that you can take a look at to see if you would qualify to find some support through there. Yep, and that would be the main guides, I would say, for that situation. And there is one other one that just kind of popped into my head, is basically a website called norent.org. And so a lot of the times that website will be able to help you kind of structure a letter to let your landlord know that you may be behind on rent. So that is a resource to kind of take a look at as well.
And beyond just when it comes to housing bills, a number of the different services that typically have monthly bills tied to them have tried to do what they can to be as thoughtful as possible. Full disclosure, from our experience in helping support students, and Tony is really a lot of the front end of that. As the pandemic has worn on, some of that flexibility has started to dry up a little bit, but I know BG&E has some different things that they'll work with people on. Some insurance companies as well have either reduced costs because people are driving less, et cetera. And so you want to explore all of those different options as well. And again, that's where we can help be an ally for you in terms of working with us and letting us know that you're looking for that support, because that's what we do. And we can't always solve everything, but we can try to be there to help with some of the bigger pieces and just provide you with what our experience has been kind of working with a number of different students. So with that, we're kind of getting to somewhat of a wrap-up point, but I know that we wanted to spend some time talking about just general advice from this last year of the pandemic. So I wrote down a couple things, and then Tony, feel free to add things in the event that I miss anything. But the most important thing, and you said this when you were talking about the Career and Internship Center, but it is true across the board in UB in different ways, is that we are open and still here to support you as students. Some of it may look a little different or may be experienced a little different, but we are very passionate and we're trying to make sure that we continue to provide a quality experience with you and that you continue to feel like you're supported by us. And so whether that be our office and the Office of Student Support, the Office of the Center for Student Engagement and Inclusion, or a number of the different offices, please know that we're there. Because of the fact that we're not physically on campus all the time, it may be something where you leave a voicemail and we get back to you. I can tell you for our office, that's how it works. If we receive a voicemail, is we can't answer it in the moment, but we'll immediately respond following it once we receive it, or via email. So know that we're here for folks. This is one that I'm stealing from Tony, but I think it's an important one, is you should always be thinking about caring for yourself during this pandemic, and being aware that like it is completely rational and completely okay to be challenged during this period of time. Everything that we knew as our life in terms of coping mechanisms, the experiences to the day-to-day, has been affected. And so that naturally comes with some challenges to it and things we need to work through. But with that, when we're experiencing those struggles, those anxieties, those challenges, it's important that the methods that we use to care for ourselves matches the intensity of the stress that we're feeling. And so making sure that if you're feeling particularly frustrated, some of your kind of more base level frustration exercises or coping mechanisms may not be successful. So you may need to have something that matches that in terms of intensity. And then the last one I have, and then Tony, feel free to add, and something else may come to me even after that. But, and I know that this one is tricky, but where you can, be open to what you're experiencing with the folks around you at the university who may be able to help you. Like, no one is experiencing this pandemic in a vacuum. And if anything, one of the things that this pandemic has shown us is how intricately connected we all are. And so we're all experiencing it, and there may be ways that folks can be supportive. And so I know of faculty members beyond just some of the work that we're doing who are, when they hear from students saying like, oh, I need to watch my kids tonight, that are being incredibly flexible in terms of managing these things. So please make sure that you're being communicative. I can't say that it's always going to happen, but there's a lot of things that can come from that openness and the fact that we're all experiencing this pandemic together. Tony, anything you would add there?
So there's two things. The first thought is more resource oriented. And so for those of you who are listening to this video that have young children or school-aged children at home, I strongly encourage you, if you are in need of resources, to also tap your child's school. Your school counselors or your pupil personnel workers are wonderful resources. And in addition to what we at UB can offer you, they may know of things specific to help benefit your children or to benefit your household. And so I always encourage folks that have that resource to access that. And that's for elementary, middle, and high school. Those folks are there to support students. And so they're doing similar work for us, just a different population. The other thing that I always, and when we're having these conversations and either recording these videos or in person talking, I guess tomorrow will be a year anniversary of us kind of making this transition. The first kind of emergency declaration came out about a year ago. And a lot has happened in that year, right? But you have made it through that this far. And I think you need to acknowledge that. I think you need to acknowledge the strength that you have been able to pull onto and the strength that has gotten you to this point. And so, I don't say that to disregard the last year and all the challenges, because that has been challenging. And as Pavan has said, nobody has come out of this, without having some type of adverse effect. But in the same respect, we have all been able to pull on something deep within ourselves to make it to today. And so I want you to remember that as you're moving forward through this semester. I want you to remember that moving past this semester, and remember how you made it through this. Because this inner strength of yours is a gift, and I think it's going to help you, long past your time here at UB.
So yeah, I think that about covers what we had on the docket to chat about. The most important thing leaving here is, if you have questions about things that we didn't talk about or the things we did, you can always reach out to us at studentsupport@ubalt.edu. You can leave a voicemail at 410-837-4755, or you can also look up our individual email. So Tony Delaney over there is tdelaney@ubalt.edu. I'm p.perswani@ubalt.edu. And the one other thing I did want to put out here on this is we got a request from the town hall last week about doing an information session on how folks can get registered if they are interested in getting one of the vaccines that are currently available. And so there's some work going on right now. So I would anticipate hearing more about that as we get a few weeks into the planning for it. But I wanted to let you know that we are trying to prioritize that, because it was a request and it's a completely great idea. So we're in the works for that. And so this is us kind of wrapping up, but know that you can always reach out to any of us. We want to thank the Campus Pantry and CSEI for having us, and just know that we are here to be a resource for you.